Lily had nothing left but $1,000 and a dream to create something of her own. When she stumbled upon the abandoned airfield, it seemed like the perfect opportunity, just an old runway, forgotten and ignored. But hidden beneath the rusted metal and broken concrete was something much darker, a secret that would change her life forever. What she thought would be a simple project quickly spiraled into a journey of uncovering a buried past and a future she never could have imagined. Before we dive into this incredible story, let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you're ready for more thrilling tales of hidden treasures and untold secrets, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Lily had never been one to shy away from a challenge, but standing in front of the weathered sign that read Hickory Springs Airfield, she questioned her decision for the first time. She'd spent the last of her savings, the last $1,000 she had, for what most would call a lost cause. The wind picked up, rattling the broken hangars as if the airfield itself was trying to speak, urging her to turn around. But Lily wasn't one to run from a challenge, and this airfield, long abandoned and forgotten, felt like a chance she couldn't ignore. The town had written the place off decades ago, its runways now cracked and overgrown, its hangars rusted into oblivion. But for Lily, it wasn't just a derelict piece of land. It was the future she had always dreamed of, a place where she could finally build something of her own. As a mechanic, she had spent years fixing other people's broken dreams. Now, it was her turn to create something that was hers. She could already see it in her mind: a garage, a workshop, maybe even a place for old cars to come back to life. Her fingers brushed the chipped metal of the gate as she stepped inside, the familiar smell of oil and gasoline hitting her like a memory. The grass had grown wild in places, and the hangars loomed like sentinels from another time. But she wasn't intimidated. She knew what she was capable of. The only problem was, she had no idea what she was truly walking into. She had heard rumors about the airfield, few whispered stories about the military using it back in the day, some mentions of hidden treasures or forgotten bunkers beneath the tarmac. But most of it was just local folklore, the kind of tales you hear in small towns where nothing ever happens, and people find excitement in legends. The thing that intrigued Lily the most wasn't the history, though it was the potential. And then there was the strange little detail about the auction she had won it from. The seller, an old woman with a severe look, hadn't seemed too bothered to let it go. "Sold as is," she'd said, with a cryptic smile. "The airfield's got secrets, girl. You'll see for yourself." As Lily stood there in the overgrown field, she tried to shake off the feeling that there was more to this place than anyone had let on. The winds howled a bit louder, and the creaking of the hangars seemed to echo in her chest. She couldn't explain it, but something about this place felt alive, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the last $1,000 of her savings had bought more than an old airfield. It had bought a mystery. With a deep breath, she pulled out her phone and snapped a quick picture of the hangars. She had no idea what she was about to uncover, but she was determined to find out. The first step was simple: get the keys to the gate. The rest would come later. She turned her back to the hangars and headed toward the small shack at the edge of the airfield, its window cracked and the door barely hanging on its hinges. But as she walked, she couldn't help but glance over her shoulder, a sense of unease creeping up her spine. She had a feeling that whatever lay beyond those rusting gates wasn't just a project waiting to be restored. It was something far more complicated, far more dangerous. And for some reason, that only made her more excited. The shack was even worse up close than it had appeared from a distance. The paint was peeling in strips, and the wooden frame had been eaten away by years of neglect. Lily hesitated at the door before pushing it open, the rusted hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the air smelled stale, like old paper and dust. A small desk sat at the far end of the room, papers scattered across it, most of them yellowed with age. Behind the desk, a file cabinet sat crookedly, its drawers slightly ajar, as though someone had hastily left it behind. She reached for the stack of papers, but something caught her eye. Through the cracked window on the opposite wall, she saw a silhouette moving outside, the figure of someone walking slowly toward the hangars. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone. Had she been followed? But when the figure stepped closer to the window, her tension melted away. It was just an old man, his back hunched, wearing a faded jacket and a worn-out hat. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, and his gaze was fixed firmly on the ground. He didn't seem to notice her in the shack. Curious, Lily stepped closer to the window, squinting to get a better look. The old man reached the base of one of the hangars, his hands resting on the rusted door. For a moment, he just stood there, as though lost in thought, before pushing the door open with a surprising amount of strength. The creak of metal echoed through the quiet airfield, a sound that seemed out of place in the otherwise still morning. Something about the way the man moved, almost as if he was going to a place he knew too well, made Lily's pulse quicken. She couldn't resist any longer. She had to know more. With a quick glance at the papers on the desk, she shoved them into a drawer and closed it softly. Her footsteps were light as she crept to the back door, avoiding the noise of the shack. When she stepped outside, the old man was already inside the hangar, the door half closed behind him. Lily hesitated for a moment, then made her way toward the hangar, her heart pounding in her chest. She reached the corner of the building and peeked around, just enough to see the old man disappear into the shadows of the hangar. Her instincts screamed at her to leave, but curiosity pulled her forward. She took a step closer to the open door, and then, in the distance, something caught her eye, a faint glimmer of light reflecting off the cracked pavement near the far edge of the runway. There, half hidden under a pile of forgotten crates, was something that didn't belong. Something new. The metal gleamed like it had never been touched by time. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what it was yet, but she knew this was no coincidence. Whatever the old man was doing, whatever secrets lay beneath this airfield, they were all connected to that strange glimmering object, and she had to find out what it was. With newfound resolve, Lily made her way around the building, keeping low. She couldn't explain it, but the deeper she got into this place, the more the airfield felt like it was waiting for her. She couldn't tell if it was the adrenaline or the promise of discovery, but something in the back of her mind was telling her that what she was about to uncover would change everything. She paused for a second to catch her breath before slipping past the door and into the hangar shadows. The air inside the hangar was thick with dust, and the air felt cooler as Lily stepped deeper into the shadows. The light from the cracked doorway barely illuminated the rusting walls and broken machinery that filled the cavernous space. Yet, it wasn't the decaying remnants of aircraft parts that held her attention. It was the object that had caught her eye from the corner of the airfield. Tucked behind a pile of old crates and worn-out tarps, a glimmer of metal beckoned. Lily's heart raced as she crept toward it, trying to quiet her breathing. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but everything inside her screamed that this moment would be crucial. She moved the crates carefully, revealing a heavy steel door. The metal was scuffed and chipped, but there was something unsettlingly intact about it, like it had been placed here with purpose, hidden from prying eyes. The door was old, no doubt, but it looked newer than anything else in the hangar. There were no markings on it, just a simple, faded handle that begged to be turned. Lily's fingers hovered over the handle. The air seemed to shift around her, pressing down with an unspoken tension, but she couldn't stop herself. She turned the handle slowly, the sound of it scraping against the rusted lock echoing in the stillness. The door creaked open with an effort, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into total darkness. The temperature dropped as she peered into the void below. It was as though the rest of the world had faded away, leaving nothing but the heavy silence that pressed in on her from every side. Lily hesitated, glancing back at the dim light filtering in from above. She could hear the soft wind rustling the trees outside, a sound that now seemed distant and detached. She should have turned back. She should have waited, thought it through, but that didn't feel right. The curiosity gnawing at her gut, the pull of the unknown, was too strong. With a deep breath, she stepped onto the first stair. The wood creaked beneath her weight, the sound muffled in the thick air. Each step felt heavier, each creak louder, as she descended further into the cold, damp darkness. Finally, the last step brought her onto solid concrete. She stood there for a moment, letting her eyes adjust to the gloom. The only light came from the faint slivers of dust-filled air that seeped in through cracks in the walls. As she walked further in, her boots clicking against the concrete floor. She noticed something that sent a chill through her spine: graffiti, crude markings on the walls, lines and symbols that seemed to twist into shapes too complicated for her mind to immediately process. The further she walked, the more she felt the sense of intrusion. It was as if she wasn't supposed to be here, and yet the pull to keep going was undeniable. The bunker felt alive with secrets, with a history that called to her in the silence. Then, in the back corner, she saw it, a row of old lockers. Some were cracked open, their contents long since taken, but others were sealed shut, untouched. One in particular caught her eye, a small, black metal box, almost hidden in the corner. She approached it cautiously, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for it. When she touched the latch, it clicked open with ease, as though it had been waiting for her. Inside, there was a single item, a weathered, leather-bound journal. Its pages were yellowed with age, and it was sealed shut with a faded red ribbon. But there was something else, something odd. On the inside cover, in faded ink, was a name she didn't recognize. M. Montgomery. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She flipped the journal open to the first page, only to be greeted with a single line, handwritten in careful script. "The truth is buried beneath the old runway. You'll find it where the sun doesn't shine." A cold shiver ran down her spine. This was no coincidence. Whoever M. Montgomery was, they had known something about this place, something that had been hidden for decades. The puzzle was beginning to take shape, but Lily knew this was just the beginning. There was more to the airfield than old runways and forgotten hangars. Much more, and she was about to uncover it all. Lily stood still in the dimly lit bunker, her mind racing. The journal in her hands felt like a lead weight, its message echoing in her mind. The truth is buried beneath the old runway. She glanced back at the rusted walls, the symbols on the concrete, and felt the oppressive silence of the airfield pressing down on her. Whatever this was, it wasn't just some abandoned military relic. It was a carefully hidden secret, waiting for someone to uncover it. And now, that someone was her. With the journal tucked under her arm, Lily slowly made her way back up the stairs. The air felt warmer as she stepped back into the hangar, but the weight of what she had discovered lingered in the pit of her stomach. She couldn't help but feel that she was being watched. It wasn't just the man she had seen earlier, no. It was something more. The airfield itself seemed to be watching her, waiting for her to make the next move. She walked back toward the open door, looking out at the broken runway. The place had once been a hub of activity, a vital part of the region's history, and now it was nothing more than a forgotten relic. But the journal, with its cryptic message, told a different story, one that was buried beneath the ground, hidden from view for years. Lily didn't waste any time. She knew she needed answers, and she wasn't going to find them standing around. The runway, the old, cracked tarmac, was the key. She had to get down there, figure out where the truth was hidden. But how? She didn't have any equipment, no plans, no map. Just the vague instructions from the journal. As she walked across the hangar floor, her boots echoing in the empty space, she spotted the old man again. This time, he was standing near the far end of the runway, his back to her. The shadows from the dilapidated buildings stretched long across the ground, and the sunlight was beginning to dip behind the hills in the distance. Lily took a deep breath. She had to speak to him. There was something about his presence here that didn't sit right with her. Maybe he knew more than he was letting on. Maybe he was the key to understanding all of this. She moved toward him cautiously, each step measured until she was close enough to call out, "Hey, you!" The man didn't turn around at first, and for a moment, Lily thought he hadn't heard her. But then, slowly, he turned. His face was lined with age, his eyes tired but sharp. He studied her for a moment, like he was weighing her every move. Finally, he spoke, his voice rough from years of disuse. "What do you want, girl?" Lily's heart pounded. She wasn't sure where to start, but she knew she couldn't back down. "I found something in the bunker," she said. "A journal. It says there's something buried beneath the runway, something important. Do you know anything about it?" The old man's expression shifted, his eyes narrowing as if he had been expecting this moment. He took a slow, deliberate step toward her, his boots crunching on the gravel. "The bunker, huh?" he muttered almost to himself. "I was wondering when someone would come digging around down there." Lily took a step back, taken aback by his reaction. "What do you mean? You know about it?" The old man sighed, his breath heavy. "I know more than I should, girl. More than anyone around here wants to hear. This place. It was never just an airfield. It was a cover for something much bigger. Something that got buried when the government pulled out and left the whole damn place to rot." Lily's pulse quickened. "What do you mean by bigger? What was here?" The man looked around nervously, as if he was afraid someone might overhear. He leaned closer to her, his voice dropping to a whisper. "This airfield was a front for a secret military operation. They weren't just flying planes in and out, they were testing things. Things that were never meant to be discovered, and those things." He hesitated, then looked down at the ground, as though the words were too heavy to say. "Those things," he continued, "are buried under the runway, and anyone who's gone digging for them, well, they've never come back the same. Sometimes they don't come back at all." A chill ran down Lily's spine. She felt the weight of his words settle over her like a thick fog. But something in her, something deep inside, told her this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. "Where exactly under the runway?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The old man shook his head, stepping back from her. "You'll figure it out, if you're meant to." He turned, giving her one last look before walking toward the far end of the airfield. "Just be careful, girl. This place, it doesn't like to be disturbed." Lily watched him go, his figure slowly disappearing into the shadows. The airfield felt quieter than ever, the silence thick with secrets. She stood there for a long moment, the journal clutched tightly in her hands, the weight of the truth pressing down on her chest. Whatever was buried beneath the runway, whatever dark history this place held, it was waiting for her. And she wasn't about to turn back now. The airfield felt different now, as if it were holding its breath, waiting. Lily stood at the edge of the cracked runway, staring down at the ground, where the old man's words echoed in her mind. "If you're meant to." He didn't say much, but what he had said had settled into her like a heavy fog. This wasn't just about restoring an abandoned airfield. This place, this land, was part of something bigger, something dangerous. But it was also something that called to her. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. There was no turning back now. She couldn't ignore the pull of the unknown. Whatever secrets lay buried beneath the runway, she had to uncover them. The airfield had been abandoned for far too long, but now, it was her responsibility to restore it, its history, its soul, not just with tools and sweat, but with the truth. With the journal still clutched tightly in her hand, Lily walked back toward the hangars. The sun was beginning to dip low in the sky, casting long shadows across the tarmac. The place had always seemed desolate, but tonight it felt different. Alive, almost. As she approached the hangars, she caught sight of the figure of the old man again, standing near one of the hangar doors. This time, he wasn't moving. He was staring out at the horizon, his hands tucked in his pockets as though lost in thought. She considered approaching him, but something stopped her. She knew he wouldn't offer any more answers. Not now. Not unless she truly understood what she was dealing with. Instead, Lily turned toward the far side of the runway, where the ground was still smooth and untouched. She needed a plan. The journal had given her a clue, but it wasn't enough. She needed to see it with her own eyes. The hidden secrets beneath the runway wouldn't reveal themselves without effort. The problem, of course, was that she didn't have the equipment or the money to dig up the entire runway. What she had was determination, and that would have to be enough for now. She reached into her bag and pulled out a set of blueprints for the airfield, one she'd found in the shack earlier. The paper was brittle, its edges yellowed, but it gave her a rough idea of the layout of the land. The runway was extensive, stretching far beyond what she could see. But it wasn't just a single, continuous stretch of pavement. There were anomalies in the design. Small pockets of space, areas that didn't quite align with the rest. Maybe that's where the answers were hidden. Her mind was already racing, formulating a plan. If she could isolate the odd sections of the runway, she could focus her digging efforts. But first, she needed a crew. This wasn't something she could do alone. She turned back toward the hangars and spotted someone she hadn't expected to see: Anna, the young engineer from town. Anna had been a fixture at the local garage for years, but Lily hadn't seen her since she bought the Airfield. The engineer was standing by one of the nearby hangar doors, wiping grease off her hands, clearly deep in thought. Lily's heart lifted. She had an idea of where to start. Anna had always been brilliant with machines, and she was more than capable of helping Lily figure out the logistics of uncovering the hidden bunker beneath the runway. "Anna!" Lily called, jogging toward her. Anna looked up, a look of surprise crossing her face as she spotted Lily approaching. "You're back," Anna said with a smile, though her eyes quickly scanned the area, noticing the desolation of the airfield. "How's the place holding up?" "Better than expected," Lily replied. "But there's something you need to see. I found something down in the bunker. There's more to this place than meets the eye, and I think we might need to get our hands dirty if we're going to figure it out." Anna raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A bunker? What kind of bunker?" Lily hesitated for a moment before answering, trying to gauge the best way to explain what she had found. "The airfield wasn't just an airfield," she said slowly. "It was a cover for something bigger, something military. I don't know exactly what, but I'm pretty sure it's hidden beneath the runway." Anna's expression shifted from curiosity to serious concern. "So, you're saying there's something buried here that's not just old junk?" Lily nodded. "Exactly. And I need your help to figure out where. I've got blueprints and some notes, but we'll need the right equipment to find it." Anna looked around at the crumbling hangars, and then back at Lily, the weight of the request settling between them. "You're really going through with this, aren't you?" "I have to," Lily replied firmly. "I can't ignore it. Not after what I've found." Anna took a deep breath, then nodded. "All right, I'm in. Let's get to work. But you're going to need more than a shovel if you want to uncover whatever this is. And I'll need to make some calls." Lily felt a surge of relief. She wasn't alone in this. And together, they would uncover whatever secrets lay buried beneath the forgotten airfield. The night was beginning to settle in, and as they talked about what they would need to dig up the past, Lily couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation stirring in her chest. The airfield was no longer just a place to rebuild her life. It was the start of something much bigger, and this was just the beginning. The days that followed felt like a blur of preparations, phone calls, and quiet anticipation. Lily and Anna worked together in the dim light of the hangars, scouring through old military maps, researching local archives, and making plans to dig up the sections of the runway they believed held the secrets. They had to move quickly. The longer they waited, the more the mystery of the airfield seemed to weigh on them both. Anna, with her practical, no-nonsense approach, had managed to gather the necessary tools. A few calls to the local excavation company secured a backhoe, while a truckload of surveying equipment arrived the next day. It was more than Lily could have ever expected, and with Anna's help, the team was ready to tackle the massive task ahead. The bunker's presence still haunted Lily's thoughts, its cold, silent walls, and the cryptic messages from the journal. She felt that there was something deeper, something even more personal to her family's past buried here. But she couldn't put her finger on it. Not yet. Not until they found what was hidden beneath the ground. The excavation began early the following morning. The heavy machinery rumbled to life, and the airfield, once eerily silent, was filled with the sound of movement shovels cutting through the dirt, tires crunching on gravel, the hum of machines. Lily watched from the sidelines, her heart racing. Every inch of earth they moved, every layer of dirt that was scraped away, felt like it was pulling her closer to something she wasn't sure she was ready to discover. It didn't take long before they hit something solid. The backhoe's bucket struck something hard beneath the tarmac, the metal scraping against concrete with a sound that made Lily's blood run cold. She signaled Anna to stop. The workers gathered around as the machine slowly pulled back, revealing a section of the runway that looked different from the rest. Darker, older, with markings that seemed out of place. Anna crouched down beside the exposed surface, running her fingers over the strange, etched lines. "This doesn't match the rest of the tarmac," she said, her voice low, almost reverent. "It looks like something was built here deliberately, and they tried to cover it up." Lily nodded, her stomach tightening. She had a feeling this was no ordinary hidden bunker. The more they uncovered, the more it felt like the airfield wasn't just a military site. It was a place designed to conceal something deeply personal, something meant to be forgotten. As the workers carefully peeled back more layers of the surface, the shape of a large steel hatch began to emerge, its edges rusted but unmistakable. The hatch was big enough to fit an entire truck through, and Lily could feel her pulse quicken as they cleared away the last of the debris. This was it. The entrance to whatever lay beneath. She had the overwhelming sense that whatever they found would answer questions she hadn't even known to ask. The workers took a step back as Lily approached the hatch. It stood there, quiet and imposing, like a door to another world. She crouched down and examined the edges. There was no handle, no visible way to open it. But there was a faint inscription, nearly worn away, but still legible under the layers of dust and grime. Lily ran her hand over the words, trying to decipher them. Project Legacy for the future. Her breath caught in her throat. Project Legacy. It was like a whisper from the past, and it sent chills down her spine. She looked up at Anna, whose expression mirrored her own disbelief. "This is it," Lily whispered. "This is what they've been hiding." Anna didn't say anything. She simply nodded, as if she too had known this moment was coming. Together, they turned to the workers, who stood silently, waiting for instructions. "Let's open it," Lily said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions in her chest. "We're not backing down now." The workers grabbed crowbars and began to pry at the rusted edges of the hatch. It didn't give easily, and Lily's heart thudded in her chest with each wrenching movement. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the hatch shifted, revealing a darkened tunnel below. Lily peered into the darkness, her hand gripping the journal tightly in her other hand. The weight of what they were about to uncover pressed heavily on her. This wasn't just about the airfield anymore. It was about her family's legacy, about the secrets that had been buried for decades, and about whatever Project Legacy was meant to accomplish. With a final deep breath, she stepped forward, into the shadows. The air inside the tunnel was colder than Lily had anticipated, the dampness clinging to her skin as she descended the narrow metal staircase leading down into the darkness. The faint smell of earth and rust filled her nostrils, and every step she took echoed in the silence. Behind her, the workers and Anna followed, but they kept their distance, unsure of what they might find below. It was clear that whatever had been hidden here was something far beyond their expectations. Lily's flashlight beam cut through the murk, illuminating a corridor that stretched out before her. The walls were lined with old, chipped concrete, and rusted pipes ran along the edges, some of them leaking a steady trickle of water. But what caught her eye wasn't the decay, it was the strange markings on the walls. Symbols, numbers, formulas. They were etched deep into the surface, as though they had been carved there in haste. She paused, scanning the walls. It was clear that someone had put a great deal of effort into hiding whatever had been done here, and from the looks of it, the work hadn't been finished. The symbols seemed like an unfinished language, a cryptic code that had been abandoned, left behind in the frenzy of whatever had caused the military to leave so abruptly. "This place is a mess," Anna muttered from behind her, breaking the silence. Her voice carried the same apprehension that Lily felt. "But I'm starting to get the feeling this isn't just some old military base." Lily didn't respond immediately. She was too focused on the symbols. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of them, but they were unlike anything she had ever seen. Some of them seemed to repeat in different patterns, while others appeared to form a sequence that was too deliberate to be random. There was an eerie, almost hypnotic quality to them. They continued walking, the darkness pressing in tighter with every step, until the corridor opened up into a large, dimly lit chamber. It was cavernous, with high ceilings supported by rusted beams. The floor was littered with old crates, broken furniture, and strange metallic objects. But what caught Lily's attention most was the far wall. There, etched into the concrete, was a massive symbol, a circle, with a strange design within it. The outer circle was broken into segments, each with a different symbol, but the center was an empty space. It looked like something had been removed, as if the symbol had been meant to hold something in place. She stepped closer, her flashlight flickering slightly as she neared it. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. It wasn't just the symbol, it was the emptiness in the center. It felt wrong, like a piece of a puzzle had been taken, leaving the rest incomplete. "I've seen something like this before," Lily whispered under her breath, her mind scrambling for the connection. It hit her like a punch to the gut. The markings, the symbols, it was all too familiar. The journal, Project Legacy. Her pulse quickened as the pieces began to fall into place. Project Legacy wasn't just a code. It was a project, something that had been built here, something that had been hidden for a reason. And whatever was at the center of this symbol, whatever had been removed, was key to understanding why this place had been abandoned. But before Lily could fully process the implications, she heard a sound soft, but distinct, a faint scraping noise coming from the far side of the chamber. Her flashlight swung in that direction, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw it. A figure, a shadow moving at the far end of the room. Lily froze, her breath catching in her throat. The figure was too quick to catch a clear glimpse of, but it was unmistakable. Someone, or something, was here. It wasn't just an old, abandoned site. The airfield, the bunker, the tunnel, it was all part of something that was still active, still being watched. Lily's mind raced. Was someone else involved in Project Legacy? Had they been waiting for her to find this place? "Lily?" Anna's voice called out from behind her, a note of concern in her tone. The figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared, slipping into one of the side tunnels. Lily's heart thudded in her chest as she turned back to Anna. "Stay close," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, but the unease in her gut was growing. Whatever they had uncovered, it wasn't just a secret military project anymore. This place, these shadows, they were far from abandoned. And whatever was hidden here, someone didn't want them to find it. The figure was gone. Whether it was a trick of the light or something else entirely, Lily couldn't say. But the tension in the air was undeniable. She stood in the middle of the chamber, staring at the empty space where the shadow had vanished. Her flashlight's beam trembled in her hand, as if it too was unsure of what it had just witnessed. Anna stepped up beside her, scanning the room with wary eyes. What the hell was that? Lily swallowed, trying to steady her breath. She wasn't sure if the figure had been real, if it was just her mind playing tricks, or if someone else had been down here watching them. But there was one thing she was certain of. They weren't alone. "I don't know," Lily replied, her voice low, almost lost in the overwhelming silence. "But I think we've just scratched the surface. The walls of the bunker, the strange symbols, the mystery behind the airfield, it was all connected. Everything pointed to the fact that this place wasn't just an abandoned relic. It was something more, something alive, and it had a history that went deeper than she could ever imagine." She turned back to the symbol etched in the wall, her thoughts swirling. The center of the design, the place where something was missing, was like a gaping hole in the puzzle. If she was going to understand what was happening here, she needed to find out what had been taken from that spot, what had been hidden, not just from the world, but from her. The question was, should she continue? Her hand instinctively reached for the journal, its weight still heavy in her pocket, the words on the first page echoing in her mind. The truth is buried beneath the old runway. Lily had already made the choice to come this far. But now, as she stood in the dark, the weight of that decision seemed heavier than ever. Was it worth it? What would she be risking if she kept digging into the past, uncovering the secrets that had been buried so long ago? Anna seemed to sense her hesitation. "Lily, if you're thinking of backing out, now's the time to do it," she said softly. "This place isn't just some abandoned field. It's dangerous. We don't know what we're up against." Lily didn't turn to face Anna. She couldn't. She was too busy staring at the symbol, at the empty space, at the puzzle that had been left incomplete for so many years. The more she thought about it, the more the weight of the decision pressed down on her. There was no going back now. She had already committed herself to uncovering the truth, to restore this place, to understand its legacy. She couldn't walk away, not when she was this close. But was she ready for what might come next? "I can't stop now," Lily said quietly, her voice steady despite the doubts swirling in her mind. "We're too deep into this. We have to see it through." Anna didn't argue, but Lily could see the concern in her eyes. The danger wasn't just in the unknown. It was in the fact that they were not just uncovering a story, they were becoming part of it. The moment Lily stepped onto this airfield, something had shifted. She could feel it in her bones. And now, there was no turning back. "We'll need more help," Lily said after a moment, her mind already working ahead. "We can't do this alone. I'll need to call in some favors." Anna nodded, though the look on her face suggested she wasn't entirely sure that was the best idea. "I can't say I'm surprised, but who are you going to call?" Lily pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking as she scrolled through her contacts. She had a few people in mind, local historians, former workers from the area who might know more about the airfield's true history. And, most importantly, people who were willing to take risks. She hit send on the first number. "There's one more thing," Anna added, her voice laced with uncertainty. "If this is bigger than we think, we might not be the only ones looking for answers. There are people who would do anything to keep this hidden." Lily's stomach tightened. She knew what Anna meant. The old man, the shadow she had seen earlier, wasn't just a curious local. He was part of something. And whatever was hidden under the runway, whoever had left it there, was not just a story, it was a legacy. And legacies were dangerous things to uncover. "I know," Lily said, her voice firm. "But I'm not backing down." She stared once more at the empty space in the symbol on the wall. The truth was buried here, somewhere in the darkness. She just had to find it, but she didn't know what it would cost her to do so. The choice had been made. Now, she had to live with the consequences. The following days were a blur of activity, urgency, and quiet tension. Lily, fueled by a determination she hadn't known she possessed, reached out to everyone she could think of: local historians, retired military personnel, and even a few old-timers from nearby towns who remembered the airfield from its glory days. Anna worked tirelessly with her, gathering resources, checking the structural integrity of the bunker, and making sure everything was in place. They were digging deeper, both literally and figuratively, into the mystery of what had been hidden at Hickory Springs. But as the days passed, something began to change. The unease that had been a low hum in the back of Lily's mind grew louder, more insistent. Every sound seemed to echo louder than before: footsteps on the cracked tarmac, the hum of the generators, even the rustling of wind through the long grass seemed to carry a sense of impending danger. The more they uncovered, the more Lily realized how much they still didn't know. And that was when it happened. The breakthrough. Late one evening, after hours of scanning old maps and documents, Anna uncovered a file that had been tucked away in a forgotten archive. It wasn't much, just a few faded papers with military jargon and outdated codes. But there, among the pages, was something unmistakable, a reference to Project Legacy. The very project that had been abandoned here so many years ago. But this wasn't just a government program, it was something more, something sinister. Lily scanned the documents, her heart racing as she pieced together the puzzle. The military had been involved in a series of top-secret experiments here at the airfield. Experiments that involved not just aircraft, but also something much darker. There were mentions of biological tests, data about subjects, and strange coded language that seemed to speak of people who had been used as test subjects. And at the center of it all was a single name: M. Montgomery. The name from the journal. Lily's pulse quickened. She read through the papers again, her mind struggling to make sense of it all. It was clear now Project Legacy wasn't just about building aircraft. It was about experimentation on a scale Lily hadn't even imagined. The legacy of the project wasn't just the machinery, the runways, or the military secrets. It was the people who had been involved, the lives that had been altered forever. And at the center of it all, Monsieur Montgomery wasn't just a witness. He was the creator. But what had Montgomery done here? And what had been hidden beneath the runway? Lily had a sinking feeling that what she was about to uncover wasn't just a dark chapter in history. It was a living, breathing nightmare. "Anna," Lily whispered, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "You need to see this." Anna rushed over, her eyes scanning the papers. Her face paled as she reached for the documents. "This isn't just about old military projects. It's about people, human subjects. This is disturbing." Lily nodded, the weight of the discovery sinking in. But it wasn't just the records that held her attention. It was the final line of the file, handwritten in the margin, scrawled in hurried script. The final experiment was buried beneath the runway. It must never be found. The final experiment. Lily swallowed hard. Whatever had been buried here, it wasn't just history. It was something far worse. Something they were getting closer to finding. Without thinking, she grabbed the flashlight and headed toward the far end of the bunker. Anna followed closely behind, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. They reached the far wall, the one with the strange symbol still etched in the stone. The empty center of the design seemed to mock them now, as if daring them to look deeper. Lily's heart raced as she approached the wall. She'd seen the code. She'd read the notes. She knew what needed to be done. The symbol needed to be completed. "Anna, I think I know what we need to do," Lily said, her voice steady. "We need to find whatever was removed from this symbol. It's the key to unlocking everything." Anna's face was a mask of concentration. She didn't question Lily's words. She knew there was no turning back now. Whatever had been hidden here, whatever dark secret this place held, they were going to uncover it. Lily turned back to the wall, her hand trembling as she traced the edges of the circle. There had to be something here. She felt it in her bones. Something that had been waiting for her, for them. With a final, deep breath, Lily pushed against the stone at the center of the symbol. There was a brief moment of resistance, and then, with a low rumble, the wall shifted. Dust and debris fell as the stone moved, revealing a narrow opening. The air around them grew colder. Lily stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The passage was narrow, barely wide enough for her to squeeze through, but it led deep into the earth. There, in the darkness, she could make out the faint outline of something, a chest, an object, something that had been waiting all this time. As she reached inside, her hand brushed against something cold and metallic. She pulled it out, revealing an old, battered box. It was heavy, and as she opened it, the contents glinted in the dim light. Inside was a stack of old photographs, faded and yellowed, depicting the early days of the airfield. But there was something else, something that made her breath catch in her throat. At the bottom of the box, a small glass vial lay nestled carefully between the papers. The vial was filled with a strange liquid, dark and viscous, swirling within the glass. Lily held it up to the light, the weight of it settling heavily in her hand. The final experiment, the legacy, and the truth that had been buried here for so long was finally within her grasp. The vial felt impossibly heavy in Lily's hand, as if the weight of the past was pouring into her, filling her with a mix of dread and awe. The liquid inside it shimmered with an unsettling sheen, a dark, oily substance that seemed almost alive, its movement too fluid, too unnatural. It was as though the vial contained something far more than just liquid. It held secrets, history, and perhaps even the answer to why this airfield had been abandoned and buried in silence for so long. Lily stared at the vial, her fingers trembling as she carefully placed it back inside the box. The photographs, the old documents, and the strange symbols, they were all pieces of a story. A history that had been erased, hidden, and now, after all these years, it was within her reach. But what did it mean? And why had the military gone to such lengths to conceal it? Anna stood beside her, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "What do you think it is?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the thick silence of the bunker. "I don't know," Lily replied, her voice hoarse as she stared at the vial. "But I think it's why they left, why they buried this place." There was a long moment of silence as the weight of the discovery sank in. For so long, Lily had been looking for answers, for something to give meaning to this place, to the airfield, and to her own life. And now, she realized, the answers had always been right here, hidden beneath the runway, buried in the shadows of the past. Her mind raced with possibilities. The final experiment. It wasn't just a military project. It was something much darker, something that had to do with people, with power, and whatever it was, it had been locked away for a reason. But the more she thought about it, the more the truth became clear. The airfield had never been just about aircraft, or bombs, or war. It had always been about something much bigger, a legacy of fear, control, and power that had transcended generations. The vial in her hand was the culmination of that legacy. Lily felt her heart begin to race. She knew what she had to do. The secrets in this bunker, the experiments, the hidden projects, they weren't just history. They were alive, waiting to be unlocked, waiting for someone to bring them into the light, and that someone was her. She looked at Anna, her eyes determined. "We need to destroy it." Anna stared at her, her expression unreadable. "What?" "The vial, the liquid. Whatever it is, we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. We need to destroy it before it can be used again." Anna hesitated for a moment, looking down at the box in Lily's hands. Then, with a slow nod, she agreed. "Right. No one else should have this. We'll make sure it stays buried." But as they began to move toward the tunnel's entrance, a thought struck Lily, one that she hadn't considered before. What if the legacy of the airfield wasn't just the experiments, the secrets, or the buried vial? What if it was something more? Maybe it was time for her to create a new legacy, one of her own. They emerged from the bunker, blinking in the harsh light of the outside world. The airfield, once a place of shadows and silence, now felt different. The wind was picking up, swirling the leaves along the runway. The hangars no longer loomed as ominous figures but as symbols of possibility, and Lily felt a sense of peace, of purpose, settle into her chest. The airfield wasn't just a place to uncover the past. It was a place where she could build the future. "I'm going to fix this place," Lily said quietly to herself more than to Anna. "I'll make it mine, for everyone who has come before me, and for everyone who will come after." Anna nodded beside her, her gaze steady. "I think that's what it was always meant to be, a new beginning." Lily looked out across the airfield, the sense of clarity washing over her. The truth had been found, and the past could never be undone, but the future, her future, was still in her hands. She wasn't just going to fix this place, she was going to restore it, make it her own. She would turn it into something that honored the legacy of the airfield and the people who had been here before her. Not the military, not the experiments, but something new, something that stood for hope, resilience, and the power of a new beginning. As Lily stood there, the sun dipping below the horizon, she felt the first true sense of peace she had experienced since setting foot on this land. She wasn't just a mechanic anymore. She was the keeper of this place's legacy, and she would shape it into something better, something worth remembering. A new legacy had begun.